Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. Ansony here hosting. As always, we are broadcasting from our headquarters in Atlanta. It is a special edition of the Hour of Politics. In this edition, I have a guest. They call him Chairman Abraham Doedeh. He is my guest, and we have a topic to discuss. But before we can go into the topic, I want to remind you that the music you just listened to was done by Minister Ivan P. and is entitled Hold My Hand. What a beautiful piece there by our brother is on YouTube. Go and watch it and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Yeah, Focus on Liberia. We promote all things Liberia, and this brother is in this business of doing music that can entertain us. And so I want to encourage you to look it up and enjoy it. Well, let's come to the topic of the day: political happenings in Liberia and the future of Liberia's democracy. We would rather have to discuss this topic than a political advocate in the person of Mr. Abraham Doedeh. Like I told you, his friends call him the chairman. Chairman, it's good to have you. Welcome.
Thank you, Ansony. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an opportunity again to be here to talk all things Liberia. So thank you so much. It's an opportunity.
All right. Well, folks, we always try to show you segment of our discussion so that you know where we start and where we end. In this discussion, we have four fundamental questions. To each of those questions, I will have a lot of follow-up questions. But let me roll to you these fundamental questions that the chairman will be answering today. Number one, is the CPP dead or will it resurrect under VP Boakai? I have a lot of follow-up questions to that. Number two, Boakai and Cummings, who is better suited to lead Liberia and why? He will answer. I will follow up with more questions. Number three, is President we are now poised for a 2023 second term victory, given what's going on? He will answer, and I will follow. Last but not the least, do the current political trends in Liberia pose any danger to our democracy? Well, that will be the segment for the discussion. And like I said, I have tons of follow-up questions to the major questions. Chairman, the stage is set. Let's get started here quickly. First of all, you've been talking and you've been advocating for a better democracy in our country. One thing I've observed is you always try to support somebody. Before we go into the discussion, why is it that you as an individual don't believe in sitting on the fence, but you always find somebody to support? Why is it that you're looking for?
Ansony, thank you for the question. I'm looking for those values that is in a leader that constitute what a good leader is. I'm looking for those basic principles that defines a leader, or who a leader is. So once I see those values, I tend to support you. Even though in most instances, people will tend to be pretentious about those values and characteristics that characterizes a leader, right? But it's important to give people a chance especially when they demonstrate or they show that they have those characteristics. So then we becomes even though we'll be hesitant to support them, I would say, let's give it a shot, because you never know what might happen. So it's about me. For me, I support people on the basis of those values that they espouses, those characteristics that I see that demonstrate who a good leader is or who good leaders are. So once I see those values, those characteristics, those threats, and then I begin to throw my weight behind them to say, well, you know what, I can support you with my moral and financial resources. So that's the reason why I always support the individuals that I support. Now on the flip side,
Mhm.
what after being elected, they demonstrate, those values that they put out, for which some of us supported them. That's another question for another day.
Thank you. And Mr. Doedeh, what I've also observed is that you tend to go after these leaders when they turn out not to be what they claim that they will be upon given the opportunity. You go after them, holding them accountable. That begs the question whether or not you always done your due diligence before, putting out your support for the individuals. Have you been doing your due diligence?
I think, thank you. Yes, I do.
Mhm.
I do most often do my due diligence, and I try. I sometimes have a very sober reflection,
Mhm.
before I kind of take a decision. And sometimes most of these leaders, most of the people will use other means to get to me. Some of them will use other friends, or use my wives, use other people, to get to me to see, to have a conversation about supporting them and all those kinds of things. So yes, I do my due diligence. I listen. I one person, and I'm glad you asked the question.
Mhm.
I one person who go after my friends. Some of them whom I know been together. I mean, we went to school together, graduated together for 20 years. Some 15. Ate cook or we ate cassava together on LU campus, and all of those things. I go after them, and the simple reason is, Ansony, Liberians have suffered too much in that country. Liberians have suffered too much in that country. And that country has so much in number of resources that we cannot pretend about the future of the country, continue to pretend about the future of the country. You know, I would sit here and be pretentious about, everything that happens in the country, and I wouldn't care, right? And join other people and do other things that some of our friends do, right? See the
Mr.
world.
Doedeh, are you a difficult person?
I'm not a difficult person. I'm not a difficult person. People who know me, they will know that I'm the one of the softest guy you will ever meet, you will talk to, and you will get support easily, you know. But I'm not equally, just pulled by the nose, or, taken for granted. I tell people I'm not a sin, but I have a fundamental defining principles that you can't just go about and violate. I mean, because you think you're my friend, you think you're my family member, or a friend, or whatever, or brother, and you violate those values. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. My dad, my mom, my
Mhm.
sisters and brothers, they know that. My wife, she knows that. Nobody violates. I'm not a sin, but nobody violates my standing principle when it comes to the issue that confronts our people back home and the country. Once you do that, I go after you, and I tell you exactly what. I'm not a sin. I can tell anybody that I'm not a sin. Every day I grow. I have my own shortcomings, but I would not. Liberians suffer too much. Our country suffer too much. For all of us who sit in America and just pretend about the future of the country. I would take. Listen, I know a lot of people in the CDC government who have come after me. They want to give offers. There are a lot of
Mhm.
people, but I would take the offer and just come on Facebook and pretend about the future of the country, and think that nothing happening in the country. Everything is fine, right? But I mean, imagine, Ansony, for a second. There are a lot of Liberians in that country who don't have any relatives and friends in America and other places. How do they survive? How do they put food on the table? So if all of us can pretend about the problem in the country, for some of us, and for me, I'm not going to pretend about the situation in the country, even if, because Ansony right there today is a talk show host, and tomorrow he given an opportunity, he decided to go against the very value he's talking about on his show. I will
Mhm.
come after Ansony. That's just me. That's just
Okay.
who I am.
All right.
So I mean, anybody can call me whatever need. I'm not difficult. I support people programs. I support people activity. I help a lot of people. From my own activity. My wife and I, we do a lot of different things. But again, Anthony, I will not sit there and see how people suffer in the country and think that it's okay. And then follow my other friends on Facebook and think that, oh, everything is rosy because I want to support. No, I'm not going to do it. And
Thank
just to
you.
close on that question,
Mhm.
that is why I asked when Mr. Cummings called me. These were some of the questions I asked. I told him, I said, listen, I run an institution of patriots. Today, tomorrow, When you start to
Mr.
go
Cummings
against,
asked for your support personally?
yes, he did. He asked for my support. He
And
called
what
me.
was your answer?
I was very glad. I was very glad how he called me. And I told him, I said, Mr. Cummings, it's not about the support. It's about, the right thing that has been done in the interest of the country. And I supported, the cities. I supported Darius DeLong, and those two support did not end. We saw how it went and how it is going, right? So I want to be very careful who I support this time around. That's why people call me, we supported Cummings. I've been very careful. So I want you to tell me, Mr. Cummings, how are you going to be any different from DeLong and from George Weah and the rest of the other people?
All right.
His answer was very interesting. So again, I just want to say for the record, I'm not a saint, but I will continue to hold my friends accountable so we can do the right thing in the interest of the country and in the interest of our Liberian people who are suffering in the country.
Before we go to the issues, would there ever come a time that you will get tired supporting people? Because from the days of New Deal movement, fast forward to supporting the CDC, and then now DeLong, and we know how you're holding DeLong accountable, and now Cummings has asked you to support him, and you said that you didn't give me a clear-cut answer. Are you supporting Cummings now? Let me get a clear-cut answer first.
Well, let me answer the question for you asked. Let me answer the question.
Okay, let me complete my question.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to ask you, would there ever come a time you would say, you know what, I'm tired of supporting people because I tried with a New D, I was not satisfied. I tried with the CDC, it was a disaster. I tried with DeLong, it became a nightmare. And now Cummings, would there ever come a time when you would say, no, I'm not supporting anybody, I'm pushing myself this time?
So I will answer the question this way. And I'll answer in two folds. One is, I will rephrase it. I'm judging from your question you asked. Am I going to get tired of being a Liberian? The question will be no. I'm not going to get tired of being a Liberian because I'm a Liberian. I'm not going to get tired of supporting individuals. No. I'm not going to get tired because they are Liberians. I will continue to evaluate and evaluate their records, and on the basis of record, continue to support them. Or I will continue to give them a second chance. If they have committed crimes in the past and they demonstrate that they've done something better in the future, or they're going to do something in the present and they're going to do something better in the future, so I support them. Yes, they'll be evaluated and supported. I will certainly look at it and support. So to answer your question, yes, I'm not going to say backtrack from supporting Liberians who I think mean well for the country and mean well for our people. I'm continuing to, we are all human. Sometimes we support people and they will tend to disappoint us, but that should not stop me from supporting people and supporting Liberian people across the country. The second part of that question is, am I going to be one time to say, well, be part of the solution? People have reached out to me, Liberians, have reached out to me to go contest in Liberia and so forth. And I one person who let it remain true to myself, right? Because it's often people will say in Liberia and say, "Oh, big brother, yeah, you're doing well." I get calls many times. "Oh, we hear you on radio. Thank you for what you're doing," and so forth and so on. So we're going to come and contest. That's not how I run. I do my things out of conviction, right? I do my things out of conviction and to be a patriot. Do it in the interest of the country and our people. So to say I will contest, yeah, maybe down the road I will contest. But 2023, I'm not thinking about it right now. I want to be able to support my people and do what we can. When the appropriate time comes, certainly will be part of the conversation. But right now, no.
So have you accepted Cummings' appeal and you are on board with things Cummings?
Yeah. On the question of supporting Cummings, yes, I told him I'm going to support him. I'm going to support him through the 2023 elections, whatever way, what it's doing the CPP, what it's doing is going as a single contesting, whatever it is, I will give him my full support in the process.
That means you have done your due diligence also. Is that right?
Certainly right. Yeah.
All right. Folks in cyberspace, we have a breaking news here. Mr. Abraham Doedeh is supporting Team Cummings. Comes 2023, he said to me, he has done his due diligence. We will find out in this interview as we go into the questions. If you are just joining us and if you have not shared the show yet, please share the show right now because we are about to go into the discussion for which we have invited Mr. Abraham Doedeh as our guest. Chairman, your friends will call you let's start with our first leading question here. Is the CPP that Mr. Cummings is part of dead now? Or do you hope and believe that somehow, it will resurrect on a VP Waka?
So, Anthony, before I answer this question, let me give you a fundamental basis for the why I think how we got here.
Mm-hmm.
And then before I can answer the question, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So, the history of coalition of parties or collaboration of political parties started far back. Before the 60s and up to post and pre-60 and the 1990s, when we all know that political parties before those era, it was just a single institution where voting, and there were a lot of democracy was tied around just a single individual or a single institution. No other participation from other institutions and from the people themselves. So it became a situation where from the 60s to the 90s, there became a democratic transformation. So that means many of the population in Africa and around the world saw the need that multi-partyism was the way to go, because it afforded the voters the opportunity to evaluate and see who they wanted to be a part of, who wanted to be a part of, who they wanted to support, who has the leadership capability, who could better transform their lives, who could better be a part of, who could better do those things, the long-term plans, who could execute wherever they needed as voters, right? So then there was a transformation. That transformation led to multi-partyism, and then at the same time, those people in that particular era from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and then after the 90s, we saw that parties now began to come together. They began to form blocks, they began to form collaboration and coalition of political parties. So those coalition of political parties now began to, even though there was a shift, right? But for the single more objective, they decided to come together to see how they could be able to resolve the long-term problems facing in their respect in their countries and the people that they were about to govern. So then there was a transition, right? That transition led to coalition. The coalition, even though the individual within the coalitions, the party ideology, the institution, the individual institutional ideology, it was a problem, in terms of measuring, in terms of collaborating, in terms of the way the individual members felt and what impact would it make, the upside and the downside, all of these different things were in it. But they had a single more objective to see how they could solve the long-term problem. Even though within the transitional period, the issue of technological advancement also was a key component of that, right? But in spite of all of those different, addendum to the transformation or the transition, there was still commitment to solving the long-term problem that were facing voters and those institutions and the democratic process, right? So, and then it went on for some time. Now, in Africa, we know that the issue of collaboration will always have its own downsides and upsides and all those kinds of things. My problem that I have with the CPP, or what has happened within the CPP, is that the Liberian people saw that there was a need that the different political parties, the ALP, the ALP, the ANC, the Unity Party, all of these different political parties come together to form a one union, right? Now, mind you, I'm not saying that each of these political parties don't have their own. Now we can talk about the character of each of the institution, right? We can talk about individual political leaders' characters, as to whether it was a better fit, or as to whether it was an added.
Will you say that was a better composition, looking at the characters, looking at the leaders that came together? You think that was a very good,
right?
nature?
Right. So that's what I'm saying. I'm coming to that. But that's what I said. You could also have a discussion about that, right? Because somebody would say, and some of us took issue with the ANC. We said, listen, you can't be going into the marriage like this. This is not good. This is not a bad fit. This is not a good fit, right? But
that means you have qualms with some actors in that arrangement.
No, we make a recommendation. We're not part of the party, but we make a recommendation. Listen, this is not a good fit, because you know why? What all of this happened today in the public space in terms of holding accountable of foreign collaboration with people like Yuri, who has a character deficit, that would have been a problem. People would have looked at it and said, but again, in a democratic space, like I said, the transition will call for.
Does that mean that was a wrong decision or bad decision?
I mean, in my opinion, it was a bad decision. But again, the voters, that's why I said the transition will call for a collaboration that will not be in a unison of acceptance of what it means to collaborate with other
so
people.
In short, you are saying it was not perfect, but it was expedient politically because the Liberian people wanted it?
Exactly. That's what the Liberian people wanted. Liberian people said, listen, you know what? Whatever the case is, we need you guys to come together. Come together for so good of solving the long-term problems that confront us as a people and country. So
but I would think that Liberian people wanted most of the parties to come together. I'm not sure the Liberian people wanted just about any individuals to come. I mean, will you agree or disagree?
Well, I mean, I will partly kind of agree and then disagree in the instant. And why I disagree, because the Liberian people, if there were any objection with respect to white people coming together,
right,
it would have been the Liberian people would have voiced it out. But if you did a survey of white people wanted a CPP, and you did a survey then, I'm not talking about prior to the crisis,
right?
The Liberian people that say, yeah, we love and want a CPP to exist because then it kind of direct our votes where it's supposed to go, and
right,
not be confused about who is what and what they want to solve. So we'll be focused on just voting the CPP instead of just voting just individual political parties, right? And then so in that part we agree, right? But on the other side, they probably say, you know what? Other people say that was not a good idea. You should have gone alone. Even if they defeat you, I mean, that's it. You stand your ground. You stand. So there was a whole lot of different theories that went into that. On the overall, Liberian people, that's what they wanted. The majority of the Liberian people, that's what they wanted. So we went with it. We went with whatever the Liberian people saw that was fit for the country, right?
Yeah.
So my thing is, when the process started, and mind you, this is about solving the long-term problem of the Liberian people and the country, right? So when they came together, this thing started going smoothly. The CPP, headed by Ellis Cummings, decided to say, you know what? Okay. He took the party to elections, the senatorial election, the parliamentary elections, 2020, right?
Yes.
And most of the candidates, he was close with doing his leadership. He was close with the responsibility of making sure that his party, wins as many seats as she could, right? And at the same time, also register the CPP. So the CPP were registered first under Ellis Cummings, and then after Ellis Cummings, under the senior Ellis Cummings, the CPP won as many seats as she could, senatorial seat, we saw Yombi Kanga and Darius DeLong and the rest of other candidates, forcing, becoming senators of the different counties, right? So CPP it went too smoothly until when Yombi took over, right? When Yombi took over, then it became a different ball game. It became a different ballgame. And
so you are saying, Mr. Doedeh, prior to the chaos that they have on their hands right now, it was a better arrangement in terms of strength. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, and the Liberian people were right when they said they wanted the CPP, because the CPP under Ellis Cummings' leadership during the senatorial election, that was demonstrated. The CPP defeated the incumbent, the CDC at different levels of the senatorial elections, by elections, right? So the numbers speaks for itself. So someone would argue why the citizen, the CPP, they didn't want somebody had carried a diversity in the CPP. Yeah, but at that point before then, the CPP defeated the CDC in almost all of the different elections throughout the country. So that tells you that the CPP was very strong then, and she will offer something serious, in the country in terms of leading the country.
So fast forward, Mr. Chairman here. If the CPP, we can say, is politically dead now, that's my words, all right, or that is on life support, giving what's obtaining, who all should be blamed and why?
So I will firstly want you, to me to answer the questions, because the question you asked, I was driving to the answer definitively before I can be able to answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the CPP is not dead. All of the reasons I just stated is not dead. But I think there is a serious artificial crisis. There was an artificial crisis that someone set into a real bloom or a real full bloom crisis, right? When I say artificial crisis, it was created by Benana Yuri. And I will come to the question of what are in JMB, whatever the case. But when that crisis took place, right, and what it is up to this point,
right?
If these leaders, if they had just come together, knowing what the CPP was all about, and said, you know what, we need to solve the Liberian people saw their political project as a project that is meant for the country, solving the long-term problem of the country, and providing solution to the nightmare that we currently have. If they had just stuck to that particular principle and say, whatever the case, whatever Benana Yure saw, quote unquote, that he saw as in nefarious or whatever, and he has said, no, JB, this is what I see. This is what the problem is. Can we solve this problem? And they have got together as leaders of the CPP and got to say, can we solve this problem internally to be able to, get grip of this thing and solve it? Then I think we'll be in a better position. But I think when I say artificial crisis, somebody was trying to score political point for some political reasons. So because of that, Benana Yure, not considering today we're in a technological age, is fast advancing. If you sit on the table, you have a meeting and you accuse somebody, and somebody's right beside you, and you're making your argument in the conference room, the next thing you know, that person can be right in that conference room and text that information out in the public. We'll be discussing in the public before they even come out of that conference room. So technology has had a serious impact on all of the things that we do as leaders of the political parties, as leaders of the CPP. So the problem is this. Yure as a person would have, done himself a deal that and said, you know what, for the sake of the CPP and for the sake of our democracy and for the sake of our Liberian people, let's have this thing solved internally. Even though I know that's a crisis, but let's solve the thing internally. But the reason why he did not bring it internally, even though he knows that's the internal resolution mechanism, he did not take advantage of that because of political interest and political process and political interest. So because somebody wants to be vice president, he says, you know what? If I take it to the public, I'll win the public sentiment. If I win the public sentiment, we can put Alex Cummings and this ASC against the wall as those one who be nefarious about whatever document that was put to the National Elections Commission. And they did it, and they didn't know the backfire or the backlash they would have gotten. They got a backlash. Now here we are. Today, the institution is in serious full-bloom crisis. As to what we're going to leave from that crisis, that's a discussion that will continue in these conversations.
And Mr. Doedeh, many observers think that all the leaders in the CPP share a responsibility to the chaos. Do you agree or do you disagree?
I think I agree. I agree to some. I agree to some. To a larger extent. I agree to a larger extent. And
yeah. Then share why you agree that they all individually or collectively share blame in this chaos.
And I will not put the blame. Let me backtrack a little bit because the question. I will not blame all of them. Right, I will blame Yuri for the crisis. I will blame Yombi Kanga for the crisis, and I will blame Joseph Boyka for not finding a resolution of the crisis. And yes,
why not Cummings? Is he a saint?
No, it's not a sin. Coming is not a sin, but what happened? One would ask the question: why did the crisis not begin when Comey was chairman of the CPP?
What you explain why Ure did, what they Nyomli do, and what the Bwaka do.
And Nyomli, when she took over, when Ure made Ure wrote out that letter, not taking into consideration, the repercussion of that letter. When he wrote that letter, I expected Nyomli as a person and as a chair of the CPP to exhibit good leadership style, right? And say, you know what? This letter is troubling. So let me call Joseph Bwaka, let me call Ellis Cummings, let me call Ure, or let me call Ure and Ellis Cummings and say, listen, how can we find a resolution to this crisis? Because we don't want this thing getting in the public domain so that it taints the character of the CPP and all of these leaders. So
Mr. Chairman, I'm not cutting you off. Ure have already put it in the public space, so it was not something she could just hide, right?
Yeah, that's true. But what happened is, as a leader, you have the responsibility to exhibit characteristics that behooves a leader. Communication is important, right? Yeah. So what would have happened is that it's in the public space. We know how cyberspace interact with a lot of different things. Right. But whether being in the public space or not, as a leader, what did you do to quell that particular, that particular issue that was in the public space? What did you do to circumvent whatever that was in the public space? What did you do to soften the water? What did you do as a leader to be able to put the issue to bed? What did you do to say, you know what, it's in the public space, but how can we find a resolution to the crisis? Or what can we have a resolution to this letter that was written against Ellis Cummings and his ANC? What can we do to mend the fences? I know Ellis Cummings felt bad in terms of the way the words that were used on him in the ANC, but how can we come together to resolve this thing? Because it's not about our individual self, it's about the country and our people. So how can we solve this crisis? She would have picked up the phone, called Ellis Cummings, pick up the phone, called Ure, have an exclusive meeting with them, called Joseph Parker, say, you know what? You the error in the thing, but come, let's see how we can talk to our
Mr. Doedeh, why he explained it there is like somebody calling for a gentleman resolution on what is an institutional matter.
No, listen, there is nothing. Gentleman resolution or conference resolution has so many different phases. So institutional billing, conference has different phases. You could call the two. Part of the way in which to solve problem is to be able to call the two individuals and confront them. Say, listen, how can we find resolution to the crisis? How can we find resolution to their particular issue? If nobody have embarked on a process of confronting these two leaders to find solution to the crisis, I bet my head by this time we would not have been at this point, trying to find, with all of the crisis in the CPP, we would not have had a problem that we have right now on our hands. So because of a failure, coupled with her ambition to become vice president, has now led to a full-blown crisis where we cannot even find control, we cannot find resolution.
Mr. Doedeh, others are thinking that, look, this man wrote because he wrote a complaint to then Chairman Nyomli Kanga Lawrence. The right thing, in anybody's opinion, or in some people's opinion, that he could have done was to, conduct an investigation. That which she did, and the findings, she released them. So how is that a problem?
No, you see, like I said earlier when I gave the historical context, a little background, right?
Right.
Into this contemporary politics or contemporary democratic process, right? There is cyberspace have had a lot of impact on our democratic in the way we communicate nowadays, right? So it's not about somebody writing a complaint. It's about how you respond to the complaint that the person has written.
Okay.
Yeah, you wrote a complaint. Good. He noticed a complaint. He noticed an issue. He wrote a complaint. Whatever description he gave that complaint, that's up to him, right? Good. But we're in a collaboration. How do we now resolve, or how do we find solution to the complaint that you has written? That should be the challenge for Nyomli. It's not about, okay, I called a meeting or so forth. You can call a meeting, but these two leaders one has accused another person of committing a crime or, engaging in a crime. So how do I solve that problem to not affect the general interest of the institution? Now, mind you, U.S. raising a crime against you and Ellis Cummings and the ANC. That accusation has led to where the CPP finds itself today.
I understand, but the gravity.
If Yombly had played a leadership role in the process of ensuring that, you know what, even though UA has a complaint, a general complaint, but there is a way for us to resolve this crisis. Let me confront UA.
But Mr. Cummings' character was being assassinated to the greater extent using the words nefarious. And when one uses the word nefarious, that person is talking about crime or criminality. That was his accusation. And the best way to have exonerated Mr. Cummings was to conduct an investigation, because that was a serious charge. And maybe if that would have been, swept under the carpet, it would have left on him. Maybe that's why she did that.
No, but listen, it's not about, I'm not saying she cannot conduct an investigation. I'm saying even in the midst of investigation, you can begin to have a serious dialogue with these two people. I bet even if the letter had not come out in the public space, right? And if they, for whatever reason, the letter had not come out in the public space, Mr. Cummings would not have, said, you know what? Yeah, you accuse me of this, even though I take offense to it, but I think for the sake of our people, we can find some resolution to the crisis. I'm not saying she should not have conducted an investigation. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But in the wake of the investigation, you will also be able to talk to these leaders and to find resolution behind the scene, so that at the end of the day, when the report comes out, you would have have something on hands to be able to resolve whatever that was going. Because but if you left that and you made yourself part of the crisis because of your own personal political interest, then it becomes a whole nother different conversation. So I think that was happening. Yomli did not play a leadership role. She took herself and made a part of the crisis. Then she, because of her own political interest she had in the process, so she was not looking beyond the institutional interest, the CPP interest and Liberian people interest. She was only looking at her own personal interest in the CPP. So that led to.
So in short, you said the way she handled it was politically motivated because she has a side?
That's what I said. I mean, and besides that, I would say it's an artificial crisis. Ewan knows full well the word he used on Cummings that didn't make any sense. He knows full well that words in Cummings does not exist. He knows full well. You have seen the document. All of us have seen the documents. All the first, second, third document. The only document we've not seen is a letter that Yomli Kanka wrote to the lawyers. I've not seen it. I don't know where you have a copy. I've not seen it. I know the ANC wrote the other day. They were asking for the copy of that letter. Nobody has seen the copy of that letter. I have not seen it. Right? So if we are talking about a resolution to a crisis, you cannot be part of the crisis. You cannot be part of. You should be resolving the crisis, bringing people to the table, having a dialogue, one-to-one, face-to-face. You can't be the one now trying to be part of the crisis and pretending to resolve the crisis. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So the thing about it is that Yombli as a person, if she didn't have an interest, in my opinion, the crisis would have been resolved. But because she had an interest, so political interest, so the crisis, in terms of the resolution of the crisis, she had no interest. So it became a situation where, okay, I will play the game wherever I want to play it. I don't have time about what the Liberian thing and what the future of the CPP thing. I will play it to my own discourse and the way I feel I want to play it because I have an interest in the process.
Thank you, folks in cyberspace. You are watching Focus on Liberia. This is the Hour of Politics with me, Ansony. Your host. My guest is Abraham Doedeh. He is here. He has just announced on this broadcast that he is on board with Team Cummings, and that is why he's in the hot seat. And we are asking him some question. Mr. Chairman, you also said Mr. Bwaka should be held responsible for the chaos that we have our hand. What did the vice president do in this whole matter? And before you come to that, there's something people have not been able to come to, right? It just came to my mind. Has anybody asked who is this informant from the net? Because according to Ure, he said somebody at net told him.
Yeah.
Why up to now no one has asked that question? Why is no one demanding answer or trying to identify this person?
And Anthony, and that's the troubling part, right? But let me address the question of Ambassador Burka, why I'm holding you responsible. You know, when you are a father in the house and everything in the house is going astray, wife and her sister are loggerhead, your wife and her, and your mother-in-law going loggerhead, and the kids are all crazy about things going in the house. Things are not straight. Everything just going loose in the house. You as a father, is that single responsibility that you have to put that house in order, to make sure that whatever confrontation that is going on in the house, you play that role as a father. That is why the God that we serve, or the fatherly responsibility, does not come easily. You know, fatherly responsibility comes with a lot of objectivity. It comes with a lot of strengths. It comes with a lot of creativity. It comes with a lot of communication, a lot of different characteristics to be a father or to be a mother, right? When that title is given to you, that means there's a lot of different roles you play to be that father or to be that mother, right? All of us, there's no secret that all of us know that the Ambassador Joseph Burka was a former vice president. He was former vice president. We all know that. And we all know that of all of the four individuals, Yombly and Yuri and Ellis Cummings, he's the oldest in the room. He's the oldest in the room. We all know that. There's no question, right? When Yombly failed to exhibit leadership in the CPP, and with all the crises that were going on, everybody said, why the vice president not speaking? Why is he not talking? Why is he not saying anything? Why is he not saying anything? This thing is in the CPP. He's the oldest in the room. All of us shouted. All of us said it on Facebook. Why is he not talking? Why is he not doing this? Why is he not doing that? And the theory was that when the vice president he's about to take on the mantle of the leadership of the CPP. So there will be a whole time for talking. He would do exactly, he would exhibit a leadership style. He was going to do the things that we expect him to do as an elder in the room, right? Even though he delayed taking the chairmanship of the CPP, I don't know for whatever reason, scare tactics or whatever, but when he finally talked about the CPP leadership, I anticipated that he would reach out to Cummings, reach out to all the political leaders and say, listen, guys, we have a responsibility to the Liberian people. Let's think about politics, about individual politics, or whatever we want to do, or what we want to be vice president, or we want to be president, whatever. It's about the interests of our people and the country. We owe it to them.
Hold your thought there, Mr. Doedeh. Hold your thought there. Please don't lose that screen of thought. Please hold it there. Let me bring this piece in. Let us understand now. In the collaboration, according to the FA, which is the Framework Agreement, they are all equally equal. Let's establish that. Let us also establish that now there are two candidates who run in the CPP.
Right.
The others are out. Right. And Mr. Burka is an experienced man. You said it. He's been vice president. He's been here.
Right.
So being a candidate and that they have to politic in to make it to the chairmanship, maybe this was Mr. Burka saying, you know what? I'm going to play. What is wrong with that? After all, this is politics, right?
Yeah. Listen, and you're absolutely right. But again, like I said, all of the politics, it's about, like I said, and I'll continue to say, it's about the interest of the Liberian people. It's about the interest of the country. So, and they'll not forget, if the Liberian people did not want a CPP, they would not have, endorsed a CPP. They'll not forget that, because that's a key component we're missing here. The Liberian people love and want the CPP to exist to go against the CDC. That's the most important thing we're forgetting. That's the most important piece we're forgetting, right? So if the Liberian people didn't want a CPP, they would not have, say, I don't know why it's important for her to come together as a political parties, for the interests of the country and our people, right? So whether you want to play politics or not, for us who got political eye, we see it, right? But those Liberians who don't have political eyes, who are not part of any political party at all, it's the interest that we're talking about here. It's not about you and me. We talk about the politics. It's not about just a Braga and Ellis Comey and the rest of the people. It's about the Liberian people interest, right? So you can play politics all you want. So let me come back to the question of, you know what, I think he is one of he's the problem, you know, one of the problem in the CPP. And has yet to exhibit leadership. Listen, Ambassador Braga, when he took over the CPP, after he never spoke for all the crisis going on, you know, because when the crisis started in the CPP, if he had just played a role in the CPP, by this time, maybe we would have had different results. But he kept quiet. He never said a word. Then he came onto the chairmanship. When he came onto the chairmanship, I expected he would bring all the people together. And then he said, you know what? Let us do a conference. I call a conference of, let me have a conference of the 4 political leaders, and then we can have a conference and come to a common understanding, you know, and then we can also ask the political leaders to have a conference, a dialogue conference of the different layers of the CPP, the different layers of the CPP, the National Assembly, the NAC, I think the National Assembly, the National
Executive Committee, National Executive Committee.
Yeah. And they got a National Executive Committee, and they got an NAC as well.
Yeah.
All the different layers.
The National Assembly Council.
Exactly. All the different layers have a conference with the different layers, you know, and say, listen, this thing is not about individual interest. It's about the interest of the people and the country. How can we find a resolution to this crisis? Then after you should have had individual meeting with all of the different people, the different layers, then you put all of them in one room and have a conference. You have a conference. And at that conference, you take a resolution of that conference. Say, listen, we came together because of this is what the Liberian people wanted. And anything that we do in these rooms, and anything that we do in this conversation, it's about the Liberian people. It's about the interest of our people. So we'll adopt a resolution. Moving forward, nothing more, nothing less, and so forth. Benala, the word you use on Cummings, SYC, these words are not words you're supposed to use on your colleagues. You're not in the elementary school. You can address your friend. You can write him a letter if you feel something wrong in a more civilized manner, in a more, friendly manner, than to write and accuse him he's a criminal, he's this and so forth. You don't do that. If you look into it, because part of the thing is that leaders should be truth tellers. They should be truth tellers. Looking the friend face and telling the truth, even if it will hurt him, tell him the truth, because that makes you a distinct and different leader. Like I said earlier, they are characteristic of a leader. So when you take on the chairmanship, you have all the different meetings with the political leaders, the different layers. You adopt a resolution, and that resolution is your guiding principle to go forward in conjunction with the document, the framework document. Then,
Mr. Doedeh,
then I come in, Ansony. Then you're gonna say, someone will say, "Oh, hold on 1 second. JMP is exhibiting leadership here, exhibiting leadership here." But what he did when he came, what he did, he decided to play into the gallery of Yombli and how they call it, and Uri. Instead of play into the hands of Uri and Yombli. There's no secret, Anthony. Look, before I learn,
all I'm saying is that he called a meeting.
Before I learn, the meeting he called was the meeting for the meeting he called was the meeting for to have a meeting, to have the discussion on the way forward on the framework document. But now the crisis is already there. And you can't be telling the man to come to a meeting and then a day to a meeting, you write him and say, "Oh, it's having a meeting." No, you can't do that. Besides that, someone all working in America, you won't have a meeting. As I said here, I already know what I should be doing tomorrow morning at my workstation. I already know what the meet. I already know we're having a sprint meeting in the morning. I already have a 15-minute meeting in the morning, and we have our agenda. I already have my agenda, everything else in my email trail that I would sort of what else is expected tomorrow for us to discuss and what are the discussion points. So if you have done that, then you want to say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm coming to the meeting prepared. Because remember, we have not resolved this crisis yet. It's still pending. So I thought that's what he would have done. But he didn't do that. He plays into the hands of Yombli and Uri. Called a meeting. If you listen to Ambassador Braga's what you call it? Listen to Ambassador Braga interview when he came to the States here. Listen to all the interview. He's not taking. He is blaming Ellis Cummings for holding on to a position that you must apologize. If you look at it very carefully, I listened to one. There was on a program you were on for yesterday with Master Washington, and in that program he said, you know, why people are being so hard on, you know, they don't want. I mean, I think we should resolve the thing. I think we should move forward. You know, we know, and so no, you can't move forward when someone is accused in the public space and they've been criminal. Your friend is being accused criminal, and you can move forward. Someone be accused, he says to move forward. On what basis are you moving forward? You have to be able to say, you know what? Look in your face and say, you wrote a letter. What you saw and what I saw, is it anything?
Mr. Doedeh, here's the thing, right? So there was an investigation. It is true that Nyombli found Comey liable for the allegation of uttering.
Right.
And then there was a request. You said a request to the lawyers were never seen, but we know that the lawyer wrote a letter.
Right.
The lawyers basically said, hey, this is political. There's nothing we can do. We're washing our hands out of it. This is why you did when you asked us, and we did that. And after that, we have nothing to do with the document.
Right.
So that means there is a disagreement here, meaning Comey side saying the document was not uttered, nothing, zero happened. And the other side saying the framework. So there's disagreement. They can't come to one conclusion. So don't you think it's logical for the vice president to say, well, since we can't have an agreement on what happens and what happens not, let us move forward? Don't you think it's logical?
No, that's not. It doesn't exhibit. It doesn't show that you are a good leader. It doesn't show that you demonstrate a leadership characteristic. It doesn't show that you are a unifying leader. It doesn't show that you are a leader who respond to issues when they arises and when there are tension in the room. So
then what you're looking for is a report that will say Cummings did nothing. That's what you're looking for, right?
No. Before you said something that I want to correct first.
Go ahead.
The letter that I mentioned earlier is a letter from Nyombli to the lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
That letter that Nyombli wrote to the lawyers, because my understanding is that the letter that Nyombli wrote to the lawyers, there a request that Nyombli was asking the lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And that some of us don't know the content of that request that she made to the lawyers. When ANC wrote a couple of weeks, I think last when it wrote, they were also asking
for that letter.
That letter is not in the public domain. And the reason why it's not out yet is because the lawyers, they are well.
Yeah, but the lawyers recounted the specific request she made to them in their response to her. So we know we got a clue.
No, it's not. Listen, that one I want you to get.
Okay.
It's not all to it. It's not all to it. There's a component in that letter that we're asking completely something different, which are political, completely different. Completely different. So you guys in the media, you should be asking for that particular letter. That letter has a different something in it. That's why we're not even getting the letter, because Nyombli is the only person who has that letter, and the lawyers. Because if the lawyer had they were on social media like we are, it would have been a public domain by now. But because they're not, so we don't have.
So you're talking about a section that the lawyers too did not respond to?
No, they didn't respond to it. They didn't. So because they said that particular was political and they didn't have it, so they didn't respond to it. It is that letter. Have you seen it? Have you seen the letter that Nyombli wrote to the lawyer? Have you seen it?
I'm not sure I've seen it. I'm not sure.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody in the media, you, me, and other people have never seen that letter. So that's why the ANC is requesting for that letter, because there is a line in that letter that Nyombli was requesting the lawyer to do something completely different, which the lawyer has refused, right? But let me come out to the question, Ansony. Listen, this is a simple thing. The ambassador as the elder in the room. Look, you can't be the elder in the room and you didn't talk. Then when you come to the stage and then you want to blame the man who has been accused, the man who has been accused of committing a crime. You accuse him of not wanting to collaborate. You accuse him of one who not wanting to listen. That doesn't make any sense. You as a person who presides over the CPP right now, you should be telling Nyombli, and Yure, we have a document. Is the document we have, is anything in this document that states nefarious attempt or anything that resembles nefarious attitude? Or is anything that resembles somebody committed a crime in this process? If so, come here and say you apologize. But you cannot leave that undone, because the danger is that, Ansony, the danger is that we're not talking about just running a social club here. Even social club have rules. We're talking about running a country. We're talking about running a country or leading a country. You cannot have this issue unresolved and go to say, oh yeah, everything is okay, then move ahead. Because there's a likelihood it'll be done again, and somebody will say, oh yeah, why he didn't do it before? And that's the reason why many of us take on the comments, because of that particular position statement. Do not just say, oh yeah, I want my character free, and then I enter the court to the table, say, oh, let's resolve it, and then you resolve it and move forward. No, the issue has to be dealt with. Who authored document? If it was authored. If it wasn't authored, why did you write a letter you wrote, and why did you give the kind of description you gave Mr. Cummings? If it is unfair for you to do that, apologize to Cummings. You're not beat to apologize. Say, my people, Liberian people, yeah, I wrote a letter, but the words that I used on my friend and brother Cummings, it was not what I meant. I was angry, or I didn't mean to do it. But you know what? We can pass this for the sake of our people in the country, and we can move forward.
So, Doedeh, why are you explaining that? You think you're going to get that?
Well, if I don't get it, and the Liberian people don't get it, the Cummings and the ANC will make that case with Liberian people. And for me, a comment does not hold Benena Ure and Joseph Burger accountable, who is the CPP chair right now. Doesn't hold him accountable to tell us, whether the document was authored or somebody said something that they shouldn't have said. Then for me, I will have a fundamental problem with him.
And Mr. Doedeh, you think Cummings is going to go forward with a CPP and still be within the CPP, with this accusation still hanging on him, because the investigation said the documents were altered and it's all pointing at him? Is he willing to go forward while this thing hangs around?
Listen, he's willing to go forward. If and only if the vice president can, the former vice president can muster, who is the chair of the CPP, can muster the courage, and tell Benena Ure and tell Benena Ure, say what he wrote against Ellis Cummings and the ANC was wrong. His words were out of line and did not perfectly fit the description that he put in the letter against Ellis Cummings' character. If he can say that to Liberian people, I think Ellis Cummings is going to move forward for the sake of our people.
And you think the vice president going to do that?
If he doesn't do that, that speaks to his leadership. That speaks to his leadership capability. That speaks to who he is as a leader. I will tell you this. I will tell you this, Ellis.
Ansony.
It's not about. It's not a vice president. Understand? It's not about him as a former vice president, right? And you got to be honest. It's the same thing he did to Madam Selly. The same thing he did to Madam Selly. He said he had 17 counts with Madam Selly. He could not even tell Madam Selly when they went to breakfast meeting and he and Madam Selly one-on-one. He could not even look in her face and tell her exactly, what was wrong, until after the 12 years, and he started telling, oh, he has 17 counts. He wanted to tell Madam Selly. If you can look in a leader's eye, if you can look in your eye and tell you exactly, you are not a leader. If you can look in your friend's eye and say you're wrong for what you did, you are not, because your friend, he's your financier, or he giving you finances, or he's sponsoring your activity. You are not a leader. You are not a leader. I'm sorry, but that is not a characteristic of a leader. If a leader will look in somebody's face and tell you whether you're wrong or not and take action, that's who a leader is. So you can't be wanting to be a leader of the country, and you can't look in Benena Ure face, you can't look in Yomi Kanga's face and tell them what they're doing is wrong. It doesn't make any sense.
Thank you so very much. Abraham Doedeh is our guest here on the Hour of Politics with me, Ansony C. As always, we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Focus on Liberia is where we educate and elevate and promote all things Liberia. Mr. Doedeh, given all you said and what's obtaining, may I ask this question? I'll make it two questions in one here. I repeat my first question. Is the CPP dead? Then I'll go on to my next question. Where do you stand also on this block voting, on primary, and the idea that there's a possibility that each of them have to go independent, given the crisis that seems to be not going to be resolved?
The first question is the CPP dead? I think the CPP is not dead. I think the CPP is struggling right now with crisis, or leadership crisis. And I think it behooves the leaders of the country to the leaders of the CPP rather to resolve the crisis. The UNO is on them. That responsibility rests with them to resolve the
Mhm.
crisis. Like I said, I already outlined what Ambassador Burger needs to do.
Mhm.
He needs to start taking side. He needs to um, double it up and call it as it is. For the sake of our country and the people. And he also has to know that time is running out for him. He needs to be a leader and look in people's faces and tell them exactly what the issues are and not be afraid to tell anybody. So is the leadership, is the CPP there? No. Is she struggling right now? Yes. Is she healthy right now? No. Is she sick? Yes. Is she going to survive out of the crisis? Depending on the leadership of those who are the hem of the CPP. For instance, Ambassador Barker, he has that he can make the CPP to die a natural death or that it survives. So that responsibility rests with him first, and then with all the other different leaders of the CPP. Because, like I said, if Benin Ayuba comes up today and say, you know what, the words that I used on Ellis Cummings, I don't think he deserved it. I don't think that they were harsh words. I don't think I've even approached my friend that way. I'm not talking to a kid. I'm not talking to somebody who lives with me. Even someone who lives with you, approach them, you talk to them in a manner that befits them. So you can't call your friend, you can't describe your friend in the manner in which you describe them and think that it's okay. So if he comes out today and say, you know what, like when people, I think what I did, we're out of line. I think Ellis Kumar will say, you know what, let's move on. That's why I said the responsibility rests with Ambassador Boyka, but solely with Ambassador Boyka because he's the chairman of the CPP right now. But the responsibility also it's for within the lives of all the CPP members as well.
So the other portion of my question was black voting,
So let's
going independent and primary. Where do you stand?
I don't even know. I don't even know why we're even having this conversation. I will give you a scenario here in my own state, right? August 19, 1890. There was a guy called Solomon Calhoun. He was a judge of the Mississippi Convention during the voting process, right? And the guy, part of his responsibility was to ensure that the blacks in Mississippi were not allowed to vote. So he called it "Black the Vote." Instead, that's why that was the acronym they used then. Black the Vote, right? So if if voting suppression during this the 60s, before the 60s, and that issue was undemocratic, right? As far as history is concerned, you live in this country, have voting suppression all over the country. People do all kinds of things to suppress the vote all around the country. And then you have a democratic process where people will go to elect their leaders as a true representation of the political party before a proper representation of the country. Because in your political party, you must exercise a democratic process that each of the people in your party will be able to vote you, casting a confidence in you before you can be representative of the overall in the country going to contest and winning and then representing the people's interest. So how is it that things that we fought against in the touring party, things that we fought against, during the apartheid, things that we fought against, in America, voting suppression during, the heydays of, the white supremacists in America, all of these different voting suppressions in the country around the world, that today there have been significant gains, that today women can vote, that today men can vote, 1% entitled to one vote, that today our democratic processes are hitting good results because of allowing people to go to the polls and vote whoever they want to vote. And yet you have a united party that will come out and say, you know what? That go back to the 1800s. Let's go back to the 1860s. Let's go back to the 1840s, where people were denied a vote. Just grab one vote, grab one sheet of paper, write everybody's name on it, and we just can't say as a vote representing the entire party or the entire institution. It makes no sense, Ansony. It makes no sense. Why should people have taken people? Look, people die in Liberia. People die for this process. For people to be, for one man to be entitled to one vote and go to the polls and elect whoever they want to elect. People die in our country. People went to jail. A lot of people stay around, they went to jail. People die in our country. People bled in our country. Institution got no. So for people to come and start making a case that will do black voting, it pains my heart. Because you know what? Some of the young people who are making the case of black voting, some of the people live right in America here. Some of the people live in Liberia. You know, if they understand the historic setting of what it meant to get here, you know, what it took for the people to get here, for women to have the right to go vote, for men to be able to vote, you know, they would not make such silly argument. That is more beyond silly to say, oh, go to black voting. If you think that somebody going to manipulate the process for which one of the black voting, it's not representative of an institution. It's not representative of an institutional democracy. You can't do that. You just can't do it. It's not representative. You people, everybody in that institution you go to, if they want to stop Joseph Parker, they go elect Joseph Parker on the basis of the issues. If they want to elect Ellis Comey, they go there. So why are you afraid for which you want to digress? You want to take the party back. You want to take the whole CCP back to the 1800s, and I don't understand it. The 1900s, I don't understand it. So this issue of black voting, Ansony, is diabolical. It's devilish. It's not representative of of a contemporary institutional democracy. I think it's against the will of our people. Nobody should then credence to that. And you know what? It's the same thing because you guys they found all kinds of pseudo means, you know, to accomplish that devilish act. You know, so they get through these different, you know, behavior to push certain point. You can't do that. You just can't do that.
So what's our primary and going independent?
Listen, the primary is going to be held. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the CPP are going to go to primary, and the document. In fact, it even violates the framework document, and the black voting violates framework document. So wherever they're coming from with black voting, it's not going to exist. It's devilish. It's diabolical. It's unconstitutional. Then on the issue of primary, they're going to go to primary.
Does Mr. Cummings and the ANC, Mr. Cummings, you support, does he actually trust that whoever will be in charge of the primary will conduct the primary judiciously?
Well, that's another question for discussion, right? But the first thing is they must go to the process. They must go to the process, certifying all of the different, you know, elements and rules and regulations and everything, and put into place the mechanism that will guide the process. Invite the international press, invite the press, local press, international press. Let them go there and witness the process. Let them have observers there, just that it's normal national elections being conducted. Let them go there and observe the process so it can be free, fair, and democratic, right? So it's about putting in place processes and procedure that is satisfactory, that if whoever wins, they come out of there will be no qualm. We all will follow that person. We stand back, we go out there and make sure that he or she is elected. All right, he is elected, right? So that's what the problem is. Our father was saying that there's going to be a primary, and the primary will satisfy all of the criteria that is laid out to be able to make sure that we have a fair, free, fair, and democratic process during the primary. Anything short of that, then there's a whole other conversation right there. But I think if they put in place the processes and procedure, invite international press, local press, and observers to come and observe the process, and after that, I think we should be good.
So you say you've done your due diligence. In politics, you don't want to have a single option. If you do, you are doomed. You've done your due diligence. Why, if the whole thing collapses, the option then becomes ANC is running at ANC, right?
Right.
Is there a path to victory?
Well, ANC is making the case, right? If you notice that in the last, when Ellis Comey started, people say, oh, man, it's not popular. Oh, you know, he's just coming, Johnny just come on the block. All of the different, you know, description they gave him. Today, it's another different story. He's making a case across the country. He going to the nooks and corners of the country, making a case to Liberian people that he's in a better alternative that can represent the country and represent our people. So he's making a case, and people are buying into his message. From now to next October, if it doesn't work out, if the CPP doesn't work out, I think Ellis will be very strong enough with the ANC, making sure that we go into these elections well prepared and be able to pull the strings and to compete with the CDC in the second round. And I'm very sure of that. If, like I said, don't take it for a joke. People think that, oh, Ambassador Booker is popular, yeah, but Ellis coming is making a case. Polls have been conducted. Yeah, Ambassador Booker comes on top of the polls, but his Ellis coming right behind, knocking the door. That was just in the last few months, and he's still making the case across the country. So if he continue to make the case across the country, deploy the resources, material and human resources across the country, I can tell you, Ellis coming will surprise a lot of people in Liberia when it comes to the 2023 elections, going independent.
All right, talking about making a case around the country, this is what we continue to see, right? Musa is in the open with his support to Mr. Cummings. But that very Musa, if I can put it this way, is punishing DeLong or criticizing DeLong for doing the same thing for Bwaka. Is there a double standard here? Or no. Mr. Cummings is quiet about it because it benefits him. You got the recent visit in Nimba, we saw Musa is in the crowd. He's supporting Cummings.
Well, listen, and there's a distinction here. Musa has not declared support for Ellis Cummings. Right?
Well, actions speak louder than words, right?
Well, the action has not been culminated into a declaration. So even
if he's campaigning with him and traveling with him, it's not enough.
No. The thing about it is that if Ellis Cummings is having a program in Bility will go there. He's part of the CPP. That's a CPP collaboration. All that they're doing right now is a CPP going out there. They come governance in the interest of the CPP, right?
So the only person Mr. Cummings invites all the time is Musa?
No, but I mean, we all know there's no secret. There's no secret that DeLong has declared support for Ambassador Bwaka. We all know that Yomli is after her own crazy ambition. We all know that. And Yomli is desperate to be vice president. So we all know that. So
but Musa has also expressed his political affinity for Mr. Cummings. Do you not know that?
You said what?
Musa has expressed his political affinity for Mr. Cummings. Do you not know that?
No, but I mean, I don't understand when they declare a political affinity. The problem is if Musa goes with Ellis Cummings all over the country, it's in the interest of the CPP. It's in the interest of the CPP. Now, Doedeh will not come out to say I declare support for
why he has to, because he has not done that with Mr. Bwaka. He has not done that with Mr. Bwaka.
You said what?
Musa has not done that with Mr. Bwaka. He has always been Mr. Cummings. Do you not see anything there?
Ansony, we all know that the divide in the CPP. We all know that in the CPP. The divide in the CPP is that the divide in the CPP is different, right? Like I said to you from the beginning, these are institutional, institutional democratic processes and crises that evolve. You're right. But listen, the ability did not declare support for ANC and Ellis Cummings. What he's doing is that as a chairman of the Liberal Party, who is a constituent member of the CPP, is going out there making a case for CPP. So it's not saying we're on a campaign trail for, no, they're making a case. When they went out of the NIMA, they want to campaign for a CPP candidate, right? Then when they went out in Bomi, they want to compete for a CPP candidate. So all of these different processes is in the benefit and interest of the CPP. It's not for individual candidate, Ellis Cummings. Right, but DeLong openly declare for Justice Bwaka, which Doedeh has not done.
I think DeLong said he's leaning. He said he's leaning.
No, he didn't even say leaning, but he also said he's supporting Ambassador Bwaka. It's a clear cut in, so he didn't not leaning, but he said it up front that he was supporting Ambassador Bwaka.
So in essence, you are saying that we should not look at Musa's action; we should only watch his words, right?
Well, if he declares his support for Ellis Cummings, yes, because whatever he's doing right now is in the interest of the CPP, and that's what everybody should be doing, not just fronting for an individual candidate, but fronting for the CPP. So that's why Ellis Cummings and Doedeh is doing fronting for the interest of the CPP. That's what they're doing. And I
All
think
right,
that's the direction.
Mr. Doedeh, earlier you recounted how the CPP had a huge success during Mr. Cummins's administration as chair of the CPP.
Right.
So talking about that, what we did not see also is the fact that the CPP under Cummins' chairmanship could not get a website. And in fact, talking about that, one would think that was a collective victory because that time there was no noise
Right.
in the CPP, so the CPP won big. I don't think you can only attribute that to Cummins' leadership. It was because they were not fighting. Each person was focusing on the unity of the CP. So you can't attribute that to Cummins only. And the fact that Cummins could not give the CPP a website, his excuse then was that he was busy with registering the CPP. I mean, you think that is excusable?
Well, that I would say, well, that is not excusable, right? Because in the contemporary politics, this is count. Like I said to you, cyberspace is a huge component of our political democracy around the world. So having a website where people can connect with you and all the different things, yeah, he should have done it. I think that was a slip of the eye, I would say, so
that was a failure.
Well,
Mr. Cummins came from the corporate world. Let me hold you there. The institution he worked for there had a website. He is a leader. He's a man now who they say his man come from a result driven. He always emphasized that he believed in results. But the thing about the website today, it's not Mr. Cummins who's going to build it personally. He will just contract the work to somebody to do that. Go ahead.
Right. But listen, Ansony, you got to know. You gotta first take into consideration what are the intricacies involved in that. You should have done that. There's no question that you should have done that, right? But it's not about the reference you made to a corporate world. I work for an institution. If my roles and responsibility was to do a website, we could do a website, right? Or if my role was to contact somebody within the setting to do a website, I could certainly do that. But if my role also is limited in terms of if my role is not if my road is not in that direction, or that I didn't see it as, or there was some technicality surrounding that process, then that's a whole conversation. Now it's different from being the corporate world, it's different from a political process.
So leadership is broad. You have to be innovative, right? Leadership is not just specific to one thing.
That's what I'm saying. And like I said, if I made a slip of the eye, I didn't mean from a deliberate standpoint that, trying to give him a pat on the back or trying to give him an easy exit or easy exit from the particular.
Then use the word failure. He failed to build the CPP website.
No, but when you say failure, what are the plan of action for Mr. Cummins when he in doing leadership? What are the responsibilities that he had to do? Because if Mr. Cummins was given the responsibility to, one, register the CPP, two, make sure that all the candidates on the CPP ballot were elected, and three, to transition the CPP to another person leader, then I would say he did not fail. He did not fail. I would say if that's something that he should have done as to part of the process to boost his leadership or to make the CPP more vibrant and viable, I would say yes. But that's not part of the saying, oh, he failed.
I thought every leader responsibility is to make sure the institution they had is institutionalized to the full years. I would think that should be one of those responsibilities.
You cannot use website. You cannot use the establishment of website, which was not part of his modus operandi, to say, oh, you know what, he failed. Because if the man was given a specific responsibility to say, we're going to do this, we're going to register the CPP as a legal entity, and he did that, give him a pass on the back. If we're going to register the CPP, and we're going to take the CPP to an election, if the CPP didn't win the senatorial elections, again the CDC, you would have said, oh yeah, the CPP massively failed. I mean, through Honor Ellis leadership. But no, he demonstrated leadership on him. When you chair the CPP, out of his candidate profile, they won the elections, right? Except for one or two. Then the CPP got registered. So I'm saying to you, if he had a didn't go as a candidate, I outline all of my things that I'm going to do, right? And I didn't execute those things I'm going to do as a leader, right? Then you can say, oh yeah, you failed. But those things that he was supposed to do, that was given to him as a mandate to do, he did those things. So you can consider because he didn't project
Mr. Doedeh, Mr. Doedeh, you know that the CPP leadership that is rotational, when one is taking over, they don't do a short list of the things they need to accomplish. They don't do that. You know that.
I know that. That's what I'm saying. That's what I said. I can give you a pass in the back. As a leader, he should have done. He should have looked at it. Say, no, you know what? In a contemporary political process, website is important. A Facebook page or whatever, or YouTube, or all the different platforms that are very important for the CPP, survivability and so forth and so on. Right? So you can say, yeah, he should have done that. But I don't want you to use that as a failure because that was not part of his, a catalog thing that he needed to do. First thing he needed to focus on making sure that the CPP was registered as an institution. The second was to make sure that the CPP won the elections in the 2020 senatorial elections, which he did very well. Right? So I can look at the website and say, well, yeah, he should have done it because we live in a cyberspace and he should have done it. But if he didn't do it, I can't be looking and say, oh, he shouldn't say he's a failure. No, I can't do that.
So do you believe that registering the CPP was done perfectly well by Mr. Cummings?
Yes, absolutely yes. Absolutely yes.
And he shared no fault of this mess regarding the framework document?
No.
Nothing was altered?
No, from what I've read, in fact, I will tell you, right?
Right.
Next week or week after next, I should be flying to DC for a meeting.
Okay.
I'll be flying to DC for a meeting. And I've had conversation with most of the lawyers most of the lawyers and people most of the lawyers, right?
Right.
And I've read what I have read. There is nothing that speaks to what Benedict Yuri alleges about Ellis Cummings being nefarious and blah 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 and so forth. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Zero, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
All right. Let me progress here. Let's come to the issue of Mr. Bwaka and Cummings, who is better suited to lead the CPP. Mr. Bwaka and Mr. Cummings, who is better suited to lead the CPP, and why? That is our next segment we'll be coming to. But before we go to that comment, that segment, let us take a short break and we'll be right back. Folks, don't go anywhere.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
I am Ansony. This is the Hour of Politics. My guest is Mr. Ibrahim Doedeh, and we are discussing the political happenings in Liberia and the future of our democracy. Before I get back to Mr. Doedeh, we have a couple of things to share with you here quickly. Today, we should have this particular show, which is The Liberian Dream, as always, with Mr. Leo Johnson. This show is canceled. The show was scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern Time today. Mr. Johnson has some family emergencies, so this show is canceled and it will not be live at 2 p.m. Eastern. However, at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, our show On Point with Jerome and George Kalentule will be live at 4 p.m. Their guest is Philip Swar. Philip Swar is the National Vice Chairman for International and Diaspora Affairs of the Opposition Liberty Party. It will be political, and do not dare to miss it. And then tomorrow, Mo Ali, the Secretary General of the now opposition and former ruling Unity Party, will be here to sit with me on another edition of the Hour of Politics. Our topic, Unity Party, and A Plans for Liberia. Later this evening, we are having a hard panel discussion focused on Liberia present murders in Monrovia. We're talking about the death in Monrovia. We'll talk about Joseph Yimambuaka's visit to the U.S. and the recent trip by George Manawia, and you do not want to miss it. All the deaths that have been happening, most of which we know have been mysterious and no investigation whatsoever. We will talk about it in how is Jessica Jara, aka Lily J. Focus on Liberia Chief Political Analyst Wilmon Wetikuni. Focus on Liberia Chief Policy Analytical Formula Aliu Kamara, who is a JMB supporter, and focus on Liberia Educational Analyst Sese Goya will be in the house. It will be a politically packed discussion. You do not want to miss it. Mr. Doedeh, I'm back with you to talk about our next segment. And after the segment, we'll bring in our viewers to participate. Mr. Buaka and Mr. Cummings, who is better suited to lead Liberia and why? Let's hear you.
Thank you, Ansony. I think Mr. Cummings is better suited. Mr. Cummings embodies the characteristic of a good leader. So I think he's better suited than Ambassador Joseph Buaka. Not because I support Cummings, but let me tell you the reason why. First let's go to, before one becomes a leader, you must be a team player, right? You must be a team player. You must be able to find solution to some of the critical issues that confront, you as a leader. You must be integrity driven. You must be a person who plans. You must be, a person who has vision. You must be, competent and driven by, driven to succeed. And I think Cummings embodies those characteristics, right? We know, all of us know Cummings' upbringing. We know he knows his story. We know how he rose to the ranks and file of Coca-Cola, and became one of the admirable leaders of that particular franchise. We know that he left from there, came to Liberia, took on the road at the CP, the ANC and his own foundation and other activities, and he has demonstrated through those institutional, the values that a leader should have, and the characteristic of a leader. So Cummings is more besides that. We know that when it comes to Liberia and the politics in Liberia, he has not been associated with any, character deficit in the country in terms of working and being fired, or was called to all because of his participation into something else in the country, or that he was involved into some scandal and all the kinds of things and so forth. We've never seen that of him, which speaks to his integrity. Of course, a leader should be able to communicate very well. We know that communication is a cardinal tool to nation building. So we know that during the CPP, Ellis Cummings communicated very well and still is, in terms of all of the different communication back and forth with all the different, with his colleagues and all the kinds of things and so forth. So it tells you that, when it comes to communication, he doesn't have a problem with communication because he communicate with his people and the CPP and all of the leaders in the CPP very well, especially with his own foundation and his involvement at level of the corporate world. So those qualities and his competence in terms of the leadership of our country, you got to be somebody who is competent in terms of you're driven to succeed in different areas. You're passionate about what you want to do in the interest of our country. You want to evolve a strategy, programs and activities that will be able to drive your passion in from a more competent perspective. So there are lots of things that you will point to that could tell you that Mr. Cummings, is poised, and he's the one who is more viable in terms of leadership capability. That that confronts the country. So at the current stage, I think that he has more quality of a leader than Joseph Boyka. So I think yes, he's more better fit than Joseph Boyka, and of course physically he's fit. I mean he's fit physically, mentally he's fit. This dude. I mean he's coming his workout and he work out every day. Physically go to the gym, work out. I mean he's physically fit. Near a president will be physically fit. I mean of course he has traveled throughout the country. I don't think even Madam Salif did that throughout the 12 years before election. But Mr. Cummings has traveled throughout the country. That tells his physical wellness. I mean, it tells his state of mind. So he's very, very. He has all of the qualities of a leader. You got to be fit. You got to be creative. I mean, he is also very creative in terms of what he wants to do. I read his policies, what he wants to do for Liberia to transform the country. It only takes a creative mind to do those kinds of things he wants to do. So I would just say, he is just a leader. He's just a leader. And again, a leader has to be honest. A leader has to be honest, and he is very honest about what he wants to do. Like I said, my dialogue with him when he called me was asking the question up from Abraham. I don't just want to be a president. I want to lead. I want to do something completely different in the country. If it's just about being leader of the country, I don't want to. I'm not too desperate for the presidency. No, I'm not desperate for it. I want to do something completely different, and I think our country needs. I wish I want to do completely different. So that speaks to who he is. That speaks to his leadership. That speaks to, his character. So I just think he's better suited than JMB.
Thank you, Mr. Doedeh. We still have a lot of questions. We will have to bring you back. We just went halfway with a lot of questions we had. We know we have your number, so you are in trouble. We'll always reach out to you so that we can, especially when you talk about Mr. Cummings' plans. I really want to see Mr. Cummings' plan because, to be honest with you, the one that I read, I don't think it's a plan. I think it's just aspiration.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't think he has a plan. If he has it, maybe it's in his mind. Okay. And I don't see one yet. I see aspiration. Okay. I don't see a plan. So maybe we'll bring you back in to talk about that.
Well, so I thought we're going to go through the questions, but the one thing that I wanted to raise, and that's start into the GMB team. I just want to do quickly before we go.
Right.
Is the danger that and the reason why I think GMB is not a leader, and the fact that GMB can even select Henry Costa to be the head of his campaign activity in the diaspora, it speaks to the kind of person GMB is. It speaks to the kind of character he has. It speaks to his leadership ability. And why do I say that? The Unity Party is divided into 4 quadrants. I told somebody a couple of days ago, 4 quadrants. You got the Ellen Sirleaf quadrant. There are people who believe in Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and they support her and they believe in her and they have the resources and all the kind of they fall in that quadrant. They are Unity Party partisans. There's another quadrant where they are Unity Party people. They are professionals. They don't get muddy into the rivalry between Ellen and Joseph Boyka. But they are independent, but they are Unity Party partisans, but they don't believe in the insults from Henry Costa and the rest of the other folks. They are independent. They want the party, good for the party, but they're not just going to support Joseph because Henry, insults everybody around the place. They are in a different quadrant. There are another quadrant who are partisans who support both Ellen and Joseph Boyka, but they themselves as individuals, they don't buy into the crisis that is between the both of them, right? They want the party to be healthy. They want the party to be independent, of these 2 individuals, right? So the other guy who fall in that quadrant. Then the last quadrant are people who are the tribalists around Joseph Boyka, who are not Unity Party partisans, but they just come to the fray, and supporting Joseph Boyka from, just because he's from Lofa and the rest of it. So there are more tribalist people who around him, those are the so who supporting him now because he's in the Unity Party. These are the 4 quadrant of people. You cannot leave any of these people out and go and select a man who insults everybody on radio every single day. And then you make him the head of your diaspora welcoming program. What happens to the traditional upists that are in the diaspora who can rather the resources or who have been running the resources? What happened to the traditional Unity Party partisans? The people who don't believe in the insults, people who don't believe in all of the different politics, the politics of better than the politics of insults and all these kind of things. What happened to those people? You left them and you go select a man who was not even a partisan of the Unity Party? What it tells me? It tells me that JMB endorses Henry Costa behavior against Ellis Cummings. The insults he ran against Ellis Cummings every single day, and everybody in the country, that means he endorses Henry Costa behavior. It pains me because you should not give a room to an individual to be insulting Ellis Cummings or to be insulting anybody for that matter, whether it's anybody for that matter in the country, and you go reward him to be a chairman of your welcoming program in the country. It speaks to your character. It speaks to your leadership.
But Mr. Doedeh, there are others too who support Mr. Cummings on the other side, who go after JMB as well. Some of them saying that he's sick. He has pacemaker and all that.
But it's not. And Ansony, we can all pretend that it doesn't happen. I mean, the ambassador he himself said it on Tima's Ladder show that he has a peacemaker. It's not a secret about it.
And this is health. So will you want to make somebody health issue a campaign issue, a political issue?
No, but listen, Ansony, nobody mentioned in the echelon of Cummings campaign or activity. Nobody except for the guys who are around would mention it. Nobody mentioned that he's he has a peacemaker and so forth and so on. But
Waka can make the same argument that Costa is not at the echelon.
But it's different. It's different from somebody insulting your mind, insulting your power, insulting yourself. It's different. Ansony, there's no comparison here. They may wake up in the morning, insult Ellis Cummings, insult Ellis Cummings family, insult himself, and all the kinds of things. Nobody from the echelon of the Cummings has insulted JMB man and JMB himself and so forth. No, the man himself said.
Are you saying Costa has insulted Cummings' parents?
He often do that on his show. I've not seen that before. You ever seen that?
I know he insults Cummings.
He did that.
Talking about his parents.
Yeah. Most of the people, he does that. One of his live podcasts, not only regular show, one of his live podcasts, he did that. He called it stupid, this and that, and so forth. Excuse me for the expression. He does that often. So it's not something serious. It's not something hidden. I'm just saying. Right. The point we're gonna get is that I'm just saying you cannot be rewarding a man who has continued to insult your friend, your colleagues. Henry Costa and Ellis Cummings are not the same. They would have 5 age different. Ellis Cummings and Joe Barker and Dure and Yombi and they are political leaders. But you don't go about insulting all the people. I'm just saying, what happened to the traditionals and Unity Party partisans who are in the diaspora? Why didn't they take on that responsibility? Why you give that man the responsibility? That means you welcome his behavior of insults to your colleagues, and that's the bottom line. That's the message that needs to go across, because you cannot reward a man who insult everybody. You give him a task to go and implement. So that's the problem right there. You can't do that. If you do that, I mean you endorse his behavior against your colleagues.
Mr. Doedeh, because of time, we will have to bring you back in. We still have those tough questions for you. So if you don't mind, we will get a closing statement, and I promise you, I'm going to bring you back so that we can, complete what we have packaged concerning this particular discussion. It's just a matter of time. Usually we have 2 or 3 shows during the Sunday, on Sunday. So let's get your closing remarks.
Again, Ansony, I just want to say thank you. I'm always available. And again, man, we all continue to support whatever you do. You've been in this process for a long time, and our country deserves better. The Liberian people deserve better, and I think you as a person and with your host of people you bring on the show, I think it's good for our country, it's good for our democracy, and we should always continue to have this frank exchange of ideas for the betterment of our country and our people. Again, I just want to say thank you ever so much for the opportunity. I'm always available. Once I get an earlier call to come on, I will try to adjust my schedule and be on to interact as we always do. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Doedeh. We are always glad to have you. Folks, we apologize. We can't take phone calls. Need not read your comments. We'll try to do better. I will try to do better next time. This is how we'll come to the end of this broadcast with our song, We Are All Liberians. Watch out for our 4 p.m. that is coming up and also our 6 p.m. show that is coming up. Thank you and bye-bye, folks.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people.